program coordinators. The Art Literacy Program is celebrating its 40th year in Beaver Room schools. Artists work as a starting point to teach elements of art, then present the hands-on lesson to students in a classroom. The cooperation and coordination between classroom teachers, the school staff, volunteers, and the program leaders are obvious and amazing. Without this group's effort, art literacy education would not be possible. I'm glad I'm part of all of it and super excited to be part of my granddaughter's education, says an art lit volunteer. No art background or experience is required to be an art lit volunteer. All are provided by volunteer site-based coordinators at each school. Currently, there are 119 different artists or cultures in circulation throughout the program. The different artists and cultures are presented by 1,500 volunteers across 36 elementary schools and 11 middle option school district-wide. As of 2019-20 school year, art literacy is present in every elementary and middle school in the district. A huge accomplishment, says Melody Ball, Art Resource Coordinator. Integral to this program are Melody Ball and Jill Bogle. Collectively, they have served in various roles in the program for 31 years. Melody has been coordinating the program for 24 years. She started as an art lit classroom volunteer and school coordinator at El Monica from 1988. In 1995, she was hired by the district as a volunteer resource coordinator, where she continues today. Jill's volunteered as an art lit classroom volunteer and school coordinator at Greenway Elementary from 1989 to 2007. She worked as a district art lit volunteer resource coordinator from 2007 to June of 2019. Thank you, Melody and Jill, for all your coordination and support for this very important program.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has really been a labor of love for both of us. We have absolutely loved being involved in this program, and we really couldn't ever do it without our fantastic volunteers, our site-based coordinators, and all of the parents and PTOs and everyone that supports this program. It really has grown to be a fantastic option that we can provide to our schools, and we have loved working in this program. As Susan said, I just retired this last June, which is going to be very strange for me to not be involved with the program, but we've done it a really long time and one of us has to go first. So thank you so very much.
So to tell you we need art lit volunteers.
Always.
And the other thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank the administration and the staff in all the buildings, because without their support also we wouldn't be here today. So thank you very much for that too. Yes.
Thanks for making a difference.
Thank you very much.
Nice way to start the evening. At this time, I'd like to ask the board members, do you have any changes to the agenda? Okay. I also want noted that board member Donna Tyner is excused this evening. With that, we will open it up to public participation. For those of you that are interested, you can fill out a yellow card out in the hallway and then give it to our board secretary, Mary Hawkins. The board welcomes public participation at this meeting. If you'd like to address the board, please fill out the card, and everyone will have 2 minutes. You'll see the time up behind, and we ask if you would please appreciate the 2 minutes at this time. And the board will not be addressing your concerns tonight. We will get that back to you through an email or phone call later on. But first up this evening is Sarah Schmidt from the BEA. Sarah? Welcome. Glad to see you.
Good evening.
Welcome back. It's a little bit weird still to be having the first day back and not be getting my classroom ready for kids, but I'm happy to be here tonight. I'm sure you all share our enthusiasm about our outlook for this year, knowing that the Student Success Act is rolling and it looks like we won't have the ballot measure challenge that we were anticipating. And as you all know, it will provide historic funding that will start to reverse the decades of disinvestment in Oregon public schools. As we proceed in our district with the needs assessment part of the Student Success Act process, I would like to encourage you all to look well beyond using SBAC scores and grades to measure student success. Not only is this a very narrow way to look at our effectiveness as an educational system, but standardized test scores will not tell us what we really need to know, which is how are the children. In our schools and classrooms, we work really hard to build relationships with our students, knowing that each child comes to us with individual needs and challenges, as well as their own unique strengths and gifts. Our task with the needs assessment process is to determine where our biggest gaps are. I would hope that this process would be led by the professional educators who know very well how our children are doing. When you spend the time that we spend in our schools, you'll become very familiar with some of these stories. The student who is sitting in a class of 40 and isn't sure how to access the help they need. The student who has a new baby brother and no one in the house is sleeping well. The student who speaks 3 languages but didn't know any English when they arrived in our classroom 2 weeks ago. The reluctant reader whose art is very well known by everyone in the school. The student who has been the victim of ongoing bullying and harassment is starting to withdraw into themselves. Or the high-achieving student who struggles to show up to school due to anxiety. These stories seem kind of doom and gloom, but this is the reality in so many of our schools, and these are the stories of the kids who really need to be addressed as we do this needs assessment. There are also the voices that aren't often heard, and it's our obligation to really reach out and make sure that those voices are heard. The good news is that we have lots of experts in our ranks, and we are looking at making investments that we have been wanting for so long, and they're finally here. So I want to share that feeling of hope, and that we're taking a step in the right direction, and we look forward to making a huge difference for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up is Greg Lindsay.
Good evening, school board. My name is Greg Lindsay. I'm the parent of Noah Lindsay, a recent Southridge High School graduate. I'm here with a few other folks in red representing Beaverton Friends of Music. As you recall, our group presented you with a petition a couple of weeks ago signed by over 5,000 people after unexpected cuts to middle school music programs in late June. Superintendent Grotting was gracious about accepting the petition and speaking in person with students and parents who delivered it. Members of our group met with him 10 days ago. The community asked for a stay on the cuts, along with a long-term change in district policies that create inequitable access to quality elective courses such as music in our middle schools. We were disappointed to learn the district will be proceeding with the cuts. Hundreds of students will see their music learning time cut in half, with directors transferred around, all while Fine Arts Tosa juggles his coordinator duties in half the time. That said, we understand it is late to make changes, and we appreciate that the school board is looking to put the larger issue on its agenda to address before next school year, and that Superintendent Grotting has made it one of his personal goals to complete a middle school programming audit to provide equity and consistency. A district-wide schedule that gives students their required subjects while allowing them daily PE plus 2 electives, at least one of which is a daily year-round class of their choosing, without excluding students who need special services, is our goal. The PE plus 2 electives everyday model. There's a lot at stake in the decisions you're about to make for next year, not just for those who value music education, but for well-rounded education in general. So we will be following along and keeping in touch throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mike Freeney.
Good evening, school board. My name is Mike Franey, and I'm a parent of Nick and Erica Franey at Mountainside High School. I'm here, along with Greg, representing Beaverton Friends of Music. As you recall, our group presented you with a petition a couple weeks ago, signed by over 5,000 people after unexpected cuts to middle school programs in late June. Superintendent Grotting was gracious about accepting the petition and speaking in person with the students and parents who delivered it. Members of our group met with him 10 days ago to follow up. The community asked for a stay on the cuts, along with a long-term change in district policies that create inequitable access to quality elective courses such as music in our middle schools. We were disappointed to learn the district will be proceeding with the cuts. Hundreds of students will see their music learning time cut in half, with directors transferred around, all while the fine arts TOSA juggles his coordinator duties in half the time. That said, we understand it is late to make changes, and we appreciate that the school board is looking to put the larger issue on its agenda to address before next school year, and that Superintendent Grotting has made it one of his personal goals to complete a middle school programming audit to provide equity and consistency. A district-wide schedule that gives students their required subjects while allowing them daily PE +2 electives, at least one of which is a daily year-round class of their choosing, without excluding students who need special services, is our goal. The PE +2 electives everyday model. There's a lot at stake in the decisions you're about to make for next year, not just for those who value music education, but for well-rounded education in general. So we'll be following along and keeping in touch throughout the year. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Okay, now on to business. First report is Superintendent Grotting.
Thank you. Welcome everybody for coming. We're about ready to start a new school year on September 2nd, and I'm proud to report that all of our schools are going to be ready. All of our maintenance projects are completed so that school can start in all of our schools. We also have some preliminary enrollment projections, and it looks like we're going to be relatively flat again. However, we will not know exactly until that magic 10-day drop that will come, and when we can actually count live bodies that are in the seats, and we'll get that to you as soon as possible. Sarah talked eloquently about the implementation of the Student Success Act and what a great opportunity, $2 billion investment. Probably will never see it in our generation again, and to make sure that we get it right. And I'm not going to go into a lot of that because our kind of planning committee will be up, and then we'll talk about some of the different engagement strategies they're going to have for our staff, students, and various aspects of our community. We also want to make sure that when we implement, we are adhering to what the legislature wanted us to do, and to really find out in our schools and our communities what's stopping our students from learning. And I guess I'll agree with Sarah somewhat in that it's not all about test scores. I think a lot of social emotional, we heard from our music people, making sure that we're educating the whole child, and that students in all of our schools have equitable opportunities to access to core and elective subjects. Also, as you know, we are getting ready to start our middle school boundary process. Request for applications of citizen participation on the boundary committee is now open. Once we receive all of those applications, principals will make recommendations of committee members to Stephen Sparks and Maureen Wheeler, and then they will forward those on to me for my final approval to make sure we're ensuring diversity across of all those members. So if you happen to be in the audience and you're really interested in serving on the middle school boundary process, applications are open. Also, talk to you a little bit about, as you know, we had some new PERS legislation. We are working with many other school districts, OSBA, and we will be working with relevant stakeholders to define and implement practices meeting the requirements of the recently passed PERS legislation. And also want to let folks know that part of that PERS legislation has been legally challenged, and that's basically the part of the IAP contribution that is being challenged at this point. We had a great administrative in-service. The primary focus of our administrative in-service did focus around equity. And in addition to that, we reviewed some administrative requirements and policies to ensure that we are adhering to our own policies as well as state statute. As you heard, I did meet with students, parents, and citizens representing the Music Task Force in the past recently, and I will be meeting with their representatives throughout the school year to find a compromise in scheduling resources and practices to enhance fine arts, all of the fine arts, participation with our students. I want to just say that students, parents, and the task force were extremely passionate, they were extremely professional, and they are committed to working with the district, and I really appreciated that. Also, just want to call out, we just received from the Department of Education, we had an audit of our Migrant 1C program. I don't even know if I told Tashiko this or if she's even received it, but it came back with no findings, and not only no findings, but several commendations of how we are intervening and helping those students. So that went extremely well. Also want to let you know that we have hired Pat McCreary as our equity director for the district. He's not here tonight. I did excuse him because right now he's moving all of his stuff out of Westview High School. And he's busy moving, but I think he's going to do a great job. One of the things that we'll be looking at right away is to do an entire district-wide equity audit. And I think it will go hand in hand with looking at some middle school scheduling, but also looking at high school scheduling and all the scheduling of all of our students to make sure that all students are receiving equitable opportunities throughout their time here at Beaverton School District. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Next up is our financial update.
We have
a special guest. We'll let you introduce yourself, Jason.
My name is Jason Kushro. I'm the finance manager. I'm presenting the financials in Jim's absence. He is actually presiding over his own annual board meeting right now, so we couldn't make it tonight. The preliminary financial for the 18-19 year ended with $489 million in revenues and $472 million in expenditures, resulting in an ending fund balance of $16.9 million. Expenditures came in below the final forecast, which were about where we expected. At the same time, revenue came in higher, which resulted in the ending fund balance being where we had it in the adopted budget for 1920. However, we had the wrong split for appropriations and exceeded the appropriations in the area of instruction by $700,000. Support services were under their appropriation by $2 million. If you look at the details, revenues were relatively flat compared to the budget, with movements occurring between sources, but spending was higher than the adopted by about $8 million. We will be talking about this more in the next school board meeting as part of the report that Jim is presenting. On the next page, you can see that all other funds came within their budgets for the year. Any questions?
Any questions? So far, so good?
Starting out well.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Next up is update on the student success app, HASPA of 3427. We have a team.
Good evening. Our team has been excited to get started with the Student Success Act. I think we talked a little bit about it at the work session. Our team is made up of John Bridges and David and Maureen and myself. We meet weekly. We're excited to have Susan and Leanne join our team in the next few weeks. And we have John Bridges right now working on our continuous improvement plan and the assessment. So he's finishing up that work, and Maureen and David are going to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing.
Yeah, thank you. So, we gave a pretty thorough update at the work session. I think, we just wanted to make sure we're keeping this on all of your agendas to see if additional questions arise from you all as a board or that percolate up through the community. I think I can echo the comments of the superintendent, appreciating the feedback and support from our labor partners. We're actually meeting with them on Thursday to discuss greater staff level outreach as well as we sort of build this plane and fly it at the same time. Given the timelines, we want to make sure we're pushing things out to the community and to staff as we have them, as they're ready to go. So certainly watch for engagement as it progresses through this process. The Department of Ed has finally put out a toolkit as it relates to this, and no surprise, most of it is what we've already got baked into our work as well. So we were happy to support them in their efforts.
So today was the first day of staff being back in the buildings, and we started to roll with the communications about the Student Success Act and welcoming staff back and our staff talk and our BSD briefs, and introducing the ideas, and as well as the community conversations that will be coming up in September and October. David did mention that we'll be meeting with our the Beaver Education Association leadership this week to learn how we might better engage and get their ideas, how we might do that. But yeah, we're moving right ahead. We actually had a nice meeting with the Portland Business Alliance to talk about how we might engage the business community in a conversation. It looks like we might do like a focus group with a group of 25 to 30 business members. So it's very interesting. So we're doing those kinds of things. And you have the communication plan if you need to review it again. I'm happy to send it to you. But we're pretty excited, and I think this is a really great opportunity for us to be able to engage in this work. Any questions?
I have a question. I saw that you've already put together a calendar of community engagement activities. How would you like the board to support you in that?
We would love it if you could help co-facilitate with us. We'll probably, in fact, we'll be talking tomorrow in cabinet about how we'll be pairing board members and a cabinet member or an administrator in the district. Because we want these to be well attended. We'd love for you to help promote that. We know that it's a come to versus a going to, and we're going to do a mixture of those kinds of things. I'm really excited about the work that special education as well as our multilingual department's going to do to really reach out to some of the underserved populations that we need to reach out with special interpreters to help in that process. But yes, come alongside us, and any public meetings that you go to out in the schools, talk it up. We have Don, every time he's at a meeting, anybody's at a meeting, talk it up. I think that's what you have to do. Remember, it's that 7 to 10 times is that communication theory. Before it starts to stick, people need to hear it. And it's true. I mean, you have to create a buzz, and that's what we're just starting to do. And everybody's so busy with the beginning of school, but this is a great time. I think people are really open also to the hope and the investment that this could bring.
Any other questions? Are we coming up with? Are we just going to continue to refer to it as the Student Success Act? Or are we still trying to call it House Bill 3427?
Are you looking for a flashy new name?
Not
to confuse you any further, but what you will end up seeing is a grant application for the Student Investment Fund. So we will progress from House Bill 3427 to the Student Success Act to the Student Investment Fund. And that is if you remember, the 50% portion that is sort of direct K-12 appropriations. So that's that portion there.
As we're trying to do that 7 to 10, when you keep changing the name, our community does not.
We will probably generally always refer to it as the Student Success Act. Okay.
I think it also fits really nicely in with our goal, right? It has the word success in it, and students. Yeah. Yeah. It's right halfway there.
Superintendent.
Yeah, just also, I know they mentioned John Bridges, who he's instrumental in helping us develop our continuous improvement plan, but also we are having Jim, our Scherzinger, our CFO. He's also a member of this committee because making sure that what resources that we are going to have to spend, we want to make sure that those are out there, and reevaluating what we're currently spending on to make sure that once again we're going to get the best return on investment. But I wanted folks to know that we do have our CFO as part of this group also.
And just to remind people, this first phase is very much a very broad look. It's asking, what are we doing well, and what can we improve in our students and programming for our students? And the next phase, that November to February, is when we start to be generative about the ideas of where, in fact, would we be wanting to apply and invest. And that's, I think, where people are going to get very interested. I think it's going to be piquing that interest in that. But we're seeing it right now.
I'm just wondering how this process is going to dovetail in with the budget process, and how, because we have the internal budget committee every year that's working, then we have this process. It sounds like they're going to be working almost at the same time. How is that going to all work together?
I think it's going to be informing the budget process, and in fact, one of our listening sessions is going to be one of these community conversations. So we're going to dovetail that work right there. We thought that was a natural fit. It's a way for people, again, to be engaged in that process of helping us decide where to apply for those funds.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to it, I mean, obviously the student success ed funds are really just a subset of the budget. So the one will feed the other, and your grant application will be due sometime well in advance of when you adopt a final budget. But it will be a component of that budget that you end up adopting. So they're not separate and distinct units, that they will go hand in hand and really symbiotic, right? The one requires the other to exist.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well,
We look forward to a year of learning more about the Student Success Act and how we can all work together to do what's best for our students and our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jason, we need you back up here for the Budget Committee membership.
I get the pleasure of addressing you twice tonight. So, there are 2 vacancies for the Budget Committee. The process is the same as in previous years. There'll be advertisements from community involvement. Then there'll be the expectation that the board members will be doing the interviews and presenting the Budget Committee in the November meeting. I'm just here if there's any questions about the process.
Any questions? It just shows we kind of know what we're doing here with this one, but Tom's in.
Or we can fake it.
Okay.
Okay, next up is we are going to continue our conversation that we started at the work session about school board goals and committee assignments. I've got a little bit of feedback from some of you since we've had our work session, and I just thought this would be a good place for us to have further discussion about, are we comfortable with these goals? Do we want additional goals? We also talked about having personal board member goals. That would not be something that we would necessarily hold to, but just as a personal thing that other school boards have done that. So this is just one final conversation to have about this before we, at our next board meeting, officially adopt our assignments as well as our board goals. So with that, I open it to any discussion. Ann?
I couldn't recall that we had discussed the second goal under Embrace Equity, but I was really thrilled to see it there. So much so that I, without discussing it with the committee chair for it, was curious if it might be something that we could assign to the Finance and Investment Committee to just make sure kind of doesn't get dropped. It's just something that I feel like, I know we have talked as a board about ways that we can further display our own commitment to equity, and I know that this needs assessment is a great starting point, so I wanted to volunteer our chair of that committee to just maybe put the tag on that so that we just make sure that it really gets cycled through this year.
Anybody?
Any other discussion?
I was also going to ask under that one where the assignment was going to be, and I know it's committee of the whole, and yet the day-to-day operations tend to pull us from the committee of the whole, and we never get to really do anything beyond the most immediate and pressing needs that push us. So I like that you're pawning it off on another committee, so to speak. So I would be in support of that, whether it's that committee or another one, because I too have felt like this is a real big need that we have, and I was pleased to hear from Superintendent that that is part of what the district is going to be doing as well, or it was from the testimony.
Does the committee chair have anything to say about that?
I welcome it. I think that's a good spot for it. And I think Mary already set up the meeting, so you guys might be pulled in. So thank you.
Any other discussion about the goals? Are we good? Do we want to make more assignments? I like this. I like these taking on assignments.
I just wanted to tell you, I thought it was a great list. And I loved the way you broke it down according to the pillars and captured what our discussion was. I thought you did a great job, Chair.
Any other? Tom?
Ditto.
Well, thank you. I think there is a lot of reading between the lines here. We've tried to capture what our goals should be, not put too many, but at the same time, they're pretty broad. And I think as we start meeting, there are going to be other things that come up that are going to take our attention. Just like, last year, the budget became front and center for all of us because it was so important to our district. So I think it's important to have the goals. What I'd like to know now is how you folks feel about any personal goals as board members. Susan?
I like the idea of a personal goal. It holds myself accountable, and I like to stretch and grow. I know this is my 7th year on the board, but having a personal goal will enable me to grow more as a board member. So I would like to adopt that.
Yeah, I think it's good to have personal goals. Like, I know a lot about Sunset because I'm over there so much, and I've been involved for 22 seasons and know everybody. But I think it's good to have personal goals so I can expand around my zone and make know more about the other schools, not just the high school. So I think it's good to have something. And then I'm data driven, so for me having personal goals and an Excel sheet will help me get out there more, and I'll add more value to the overall zone, I think.
Any other feedback? So you're just trusting me to put these goals together? No. So you gotta speak up.
Becky, how would you like us to go about forming these goals? Do you have some sort of guidelines for us or something that would help?
I think I shared with you the ones that Tiger 12 had done in the past. It was pretty much, attending conferences, whether they be regional or statewide, making school visits, attending things in the district. They just put these, and it didn't look like anybody gave them a certain number. They just, had them listed as things that they were trying to aspire to. And then they reported out at the end of the year what they, tried to accomplish.
So do I need to wait for the new year and then put in my resolution? Or would you need it at the next session?
If you guys are open to it, I'd like to just see some feedback on that at the next session. But in the meantime, we're going to adopt these goals with the addition of adding finance and investment for responsibility under development and implementation of equity needs assessment. Is there any other changes or additions to the goals? All right, so I will have those for us to vote on for the next meeting, and then you folks will all come with your own personal sheet of things you would like to accomplish as an individual board member. Okay? All right, with that, we'll move on to consent agenda.
Chair Timchuk, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. With that, board communication. Susan?
Or two, actually. So this is back in June, but I was very fortunate to attend the social and emotional seminar in June at, I don't remember where it was, Mountainside. I found it extremely worthwhile for me personally and as a growing experience as a board member. So I was really happy to attend that. The other thing that I feel very fortunate to attend was last Tuesday. I went out with some Southbridge vice principals show and a teacher from Southbridge and visited new ninth graders to welcome them to Southbridge. You know, it was kind of hit and miss whether they were home or not, but it was really cool to see the enthusiasm by, you know, the administration and teachers to welcome new students that might be at risk coming in for whatever reason, to make them feel like they know a person before they enter that school. So that was quite exciting for me.
Any other? I'll just say, again, a lot of things happened over the summer, and we, as a community, lost two of our recent graduates at Southbridge High School over the summer. And even though they were recent graduates, our community rallied behind and supported. And being an alumni parent from Southbridge, this was something very near and dear to my heart. And from how teachers and staff and students all came together at the candlelight vigil to the actual service, I want to thank the district for helping with that. You can't help to just think that it could have been any one of our children. But I was reminded, over and over and over again, once a Skyhawk, always a Skyhawk. And it was really touching for me to see how our community comes together in difficult times. So that was important. And then on a very positive note, this last week I got to attend the new staff orientation with Superintendent Grading and other staff members. And we've got a great set of new staff members, and they're enthusiastic and they're passionate, and they're going to be great with our students. And it was just great to welcome new staff to the district. But I thank all the folks that worked all summer long that did not get I appreciate all the custodial staff in each one of our buildings, and feel very bad for our maintenance, Jerry, that we lost at Westview, and again, just showed how this community comes together, and hope they know that their family knows how much we appreciate and support, and how important that is. And appreciate all the folks here at the district office for all the hard work that they did over the summertime and getting reorganized and getting new people hired. And I'm really looking forward to a great school year, and it's not going to be very often that we leave when it's still daylight outside. So appreciate that we have that. So,
I was looking through my notes to make one comment. I just got back from a summer leadership seminar with NSBA in Chicago, and I was really moved. I don't often leave conferences with really great things that I take with me, but we listened to a speaker named David Horsager. I hope I pronounced his name. He's the CEO of Trust Edge Leadership Institute. And he talked about how a lack of trust in organizations can really have significant cost. And I thought a lot about our district and our community and some tough times that we've gone through. And anyway, he wrote a book. I'm going to get it. If it's good, you may all be gifted something. But I just wanted to talk about, he had a bunch of C's, alliterations of things that help build trust. And then he elaborated on all of those. But just really quickly, clarity, compassion, character, competency, commitment, connection, contribution, and consistency. And I thought it was phenomenal. So I just wanted to share that.
Last word, Superintendent Gordon?
And just thank you for bringing up Jerry Syverson was a maintenance worker who passed away, and Sue Robertson, our HR director, Carl Mead, our deputy superintendent of operation, and Josh Gomez, our new operations supervisor. We attended, and it was well attended by many staff from Beaverton. And so very sad, but the family was very appreciative of the Beaverton School District and the support. Also, just want to mention that we also had a teacher pass away at Chehalem Elementary School also, and so don't want to forget her over the summer. So we always talk about having a culture of care for our children, and sometimes we need to think about having a culture of care for our staff too, because they endure some pretty difficult things and see some pretty difficult things throughout the school year and go home, and at some point they need some of that support and outlet. And just a big shout out to Leslie Rogers, our flight team, Danielle, all of those folks. They just have processes that just go into gear, and whether it's day or night, summer, during the school year, they do a great job. And then just finally, I know recently you've seen some of the cybersecurity and some of the financial security that's happening in school districts that are getting hacked, and the amount of money that's sometimes not being able to be recovered. And what I will tell you is our business department and Steve Langford, who's sitting there, they've really tried to put in some services, some checks and balances, I think, that put us in a very good position. I don't think nothing's ever foolproof, but we are on it, and people are asking our district, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And so we're looking at our practices continually, but it's just something you cannot let your guard down. Those people are out there, and they're coming out there, and they just come up with new innovative ways to try to steal money from public places. So I know, like, if you haven't read it, some of you are looking at me quizzically, but Portland Public just about had nearly $3 million taken out of their account and swept out of their account, and they caught it at the last minute. So, which they were fortunate. There have been other school districts in Oregon and a college, Southern Oregon Community College, who were not so lucky and actually had the money swept, and it cannot be recovered. So, thank you, Steve.
With that, this concludes our business meeting for tonight. Our next meeting will be on September 23rd, 2019 at 6:30. We're adjourned.